right, joining us now from Philadelphia, Republican Senator from Pennsylvania, appointed to be a member of the Debt Supercommittee.
This is exciting.
Senator Pat Toomey.
Good morning, guys.
Yeah.
He's a big spender.
All right,
nice.
so
He spent his whole career being a big pork barrel.
You're not supposed to tell everyone, Joe.
All right, so Pat, is there any chance for a deal? You look at the front pages of the newspapers, and the markets are thinking.
Yeah.
Obviously, the people are thinking they better get there somehow. Can you guys do it?
I sure hope so. And based on my preliminary discussions, the membership on our side was announced only yesterday morning. But I can tell you there's a real desire to get something done. I had an encouraging, brief conversation with Max Baucus. I think he's got a great frame of mind that he's bringing to this. So, I think give us a chance. I think we want to do something meaningful.
I'm not going to have you negotiate against your position, but obviously a lot of people are going to be asking this question. If you can get $3 trillion in cuts, entitlement programs, defense, domestic, for $1 trillion in revenue, closing loopholes, is that even a possibility with this group?
Well, you preface the question with the right observation, Joe. This isn't the format for me to put lines in the sand or to start negotiating, but let me just say there's some guiding principles, and the guiding principles for me are going to be meaningful deficit reduction in a way that's pro-growth. And there's a lot of opportunity to do that. I think there should be a lot of opportunity for common ground. This isn't going to work unless there's some appealing elements for both sides. I understand that. I'm sure everybody does. So I really hope we'll be able to accomplish something.
What happens if you don't? I mean, there is across-the-board cuts that go into effect. I mean, is the enforcement mechanism truly an enforcement mechanism?
Well,
or is it just going to be more bad news for our economy because nothing happens?
I think it's both, and that's part of why I'm cautiously optimistic that we ought to be able to accomplish something. It is automatic cuts that are really hard to swallow for most members of Congress. Huge cuts in defense that most Republicans will find very, very uncomfortable. Cuts in non-defense discretionary spending that many of my Democrat friends would find very problematic. So that's not appealing. The other element of this, of course, is that it would cause a further lack of confidence, if that's possible, but a further diminution of any remaining confidence in Congress's ability to get things done. So that combination, I think, is going to put a lot of pressure on us to try to reach an agreement.
Mort Zuckerman's here. Mort.
Hi. What is your principal objective here? What do you think is the single most important thing that the committee has to do and that you think the committee ought to do?
I think the most important thing is to make credible reductions in the size of the deficit. I think that's going to come from the spending side. And I think there have been a lot of elements to this from other groups. We on the committee probably aren't going to do a whole lot of reinventing wheels. We're probably going to look at some really thoughtful work that's been done by other groups, by other commissions, by other folks that have vetted meaningful ideas, that have demonstrated some political support. I think we ought to look to those opportunities and move with some of them.
A lot of economists think that in the second half of this year there's going to be a lot of diminution of the fiscal stimulus, and that in one sense one of the objectives might be a short-term fiscal stimulus and a long-term fiscal debt reduction or fiscal deficit reduction. Is that a theory that you think will be helpful in your dialogues with the various other groups?
Well, I would just speak for myself on that. I'm not in the Keynesian school of thought that buys into the idea that the government gets some uniquely beneficial multiplier effect on its spending, and that therefore we ought to increase government spending in this environment. I actually think if we make some meaningful progress on reductions in spending and deficit reductions in the near term and going forward with hopefully some structural changes, I think that would be extremely encouraging to markets and confidence building, and that would be very constructive for the economy.
Senator Toomey, it's Willie Geist. Good to see you this morning. We certainly hope for the best out of this committee, but Nancy Pelosi said this week, in fact, that one of her goals is to protect Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security against guys like you. And on the other side, I know you're not going to be very interested in raising revenues. So why should the American people believe that you guys, these two sides, can come together in the middle somewhere to reach a big deal that makes a real impact on the economy?
Look, I'm not suggesting this is going to be easy. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be really tough. But there have been a lot of good ideas that have been vetted, that do have political support. There's a lot of pressure on us. As Joe can tell you, this committee has really some unique opportunities, because a simple majority within the committee voting on a piece of legislation can then force the up or down vote in both the House and the Senate. Leadership can't obstruct it. It's not subject to a filibuster. You can't amend it. So that creates a dynamic that's extremely unusual and really ratchets up the incentive of the members of the committee to find some common ground.
Entitlements have to be on the table, right?
They have to be. I mean, look, we all know that the long-term driver of the deficits we have, not the very short term, frankly, in the last few years, it's been mostly discretionary spending. But in the medium and long term, we're not going to change the fiscal course we're on unless we address the big entitlement programs.
Yeah.
All right, Senator Pat Toomey, thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me, guys.
We greatly appreciate it. And now, when is this? When's your work supposed to be done?
November, before Thanksgiving, we need to report out of the committee a product, and the Congress has to vote on it before Christmas.
Okay, so by that time, Willie, the Red Sox will have already beaten the Phillies in the World
Yeah.
Series.
Don't be so
He'll be
sure.
available.
So, yeah. So,
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you so much.
We're getting new